Good evening, everybody. Good morning as well. So, whichever part of the world you are, Vanakkam, Vanakkam, Vandanam, Namaste, Namaskar. So, it's a great pleasure and honor to welcome you all to another episode of It's Diff Show. It's Diff Show, It's Diff News, Views, and Music Show. This is Sri Srinivasa. Hope you're all staying safe, staying healthy, and appreciate you are giving time to our It's Diff Show. So, today, we are going to talk about the CATS 2020. Is an awareness program. It's more an educational program. And it's going to be in two segments. One segment is about the individual, what are the benefits? Why do I really care? The second part is going to be about the business segment, the small and medium business, in terms of like, why do we care? What are the nuances and things like that? So generally, when you talk about care, I just wanted to start about a quote. You really can change the world if you care enough. You really can change the world if you care enough. So the can attitude is always the power of positive thinking. So to start with, we just wanted to read the agenda for you. Tax reliefs under the CARES Act, unemployment benefits under the CARES Act, Paycheck Protection Program and other relief for small businesses, economic impact payment. This is the agenda for today. It's going to be broken into two segments. So in generally, with my limited knowledge, I would just read out what I found, which is publicly available information. The CARES Act, which is the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act. It was passed by Congress with overwhelming bipartisan support and signed into law by President Trump on March 27th, 2020. The $2.2 trillion coronavirus aid package. To talk more about this and then educate us and answer some of your questions, so we are going to have Mr. Raman Rangarajan and Mrs. Radha Rao. They're both from Principal Tax, which is previously known as Raman Accountancy. They are full service taxation planning, assurance, and consulting firm. So, about Raman Rangarajan, our good friend, a good Samaritan, always a person with a good heart, and always supports all the non-profit organizations with a service mentality as a personal friend and also a guide. And I've been working with him for a couple of years now, more than a decade. And thing is, I have a habit. When I like something, I just wanted to share it with all. So that's how this show started. And Ramos was so kind enough and said, Shri, let's do the CARES Act and show that we care. So it's going to be the next 40 minutes. It's going to be about information on CARES. So please do not hesitate if you have any questions. So let me just continue and read about Mr. Raman, founder and CEO of Principal Tax, previously Ram Accountancy Services, offers us 3 decades of practical experience and knowledge about taxes and auditing to service all tax needs. Of course, he's very savvy with technology, business, management, taxation service, and whatnot. So he's got all the experience that he has got here, okay? And of course, he's a certified public accountant and a chartered accountancy from India, and also BS in mathematics. All right. So now, I just wanted to give a brief about Mrs. Radha Rao, but just one last bit I wanted to share about Raman. Specializations in the area of general business consultation, management advisory services, audit, taxation, financial services, and of course, IT. All right. Mrs. Radha Rao, thank you. It's a great pleasure also to have her along with Mr. Raman from Principal Tax. She's an accomplished licensed tax professional with over 15 years of experience in individual taxation. Born and raised in India, and has called the Bay Area home for the last 20 years. Welcome. Thank you. When it comes to work, no challenges is too big for her. Expertise in dealing with complex tax situations, including but not limited to employer stocks such as RSUs, ESPP, ISO, rentals, ITINs, non-resident and multiple state returns. She also has the experience in accounting at a public company. So now, without much ado, I welcome both Mr. Raman and Mrs. Radha to our It's Tip show. And once again, thanks all our listeners for joining. Thank you, Raman, and thank you, Radha, for joining us today.
All thank you, Steve, for a nice introduction about both of us. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about the current situation on COVID-19, actually, there are a lot of things are happening. So first of all, my sincere appreciation to the organization for amongst these tough times. You are still working super hard day and night to make sure the taxes are filed by the deadline. I know the deadlines have been a little bit extended, whatever. So we'll talk more about this, and also I'll allow for folks will be asking questions on this. So thank you very much for that. So to start with, generally, other than the definition of cares, so could you tell us about why do we care about this?
That's a good point. So before I get started, I just want to wish everyone good health and all that. Hopefully everybody is doing fine. And thanks for taking time out in the late evening today. I know that it's a dinner time for many people at home. But despite that, people who have logged in today, they are going to benefit a lot by hearing from us about the benefits of the CARES Act. The major advantage, despite all the problems that we are going through, is the silver lining in this whole situation is the CARES Act, because a lot of the people who are not having enough income or going through loss of a job or economic difficulty, this CARES Act has come in sort of a very useful time. This was an act that was passed by Trump on March 27, 2020. It's called the CARES Act because it's an acronym for Coronavirus Aid, Relief and Economic Security Act. So this act gives a lot of benefits for both individuals as well as businesses. So we are, as Steve mentioned before, we are going to divide this presentation to two segments. One segment for individuals and one segment for business. I know that people who are attending will be having businesses too. That's why we want to have a small segment on business aspect of the CARES Act. So people can always ask questions through the chat, or they can wait till the end of the presentation, and we can answer all the questions that are possible to be answered today. If not, we can always consult with us after the show, either in the form of email or phone call, and we'll definitely help you with whatever information you need. Because we're all going through this crisis or critical time, and I want people to be benefited from this CARES Act as much as possible.
Okay, thank you. And I'm just putting the contact information up front as well, info@principaltax.com. Thank you, Mr. Raman, on this. So first, since you touched on the deadlines and stuff like that, so what are the changes to filing due dates because of the pandemic situation right now?
Yeah, so by now, many individuals would know that the tax return deadline has been extended to July 15th. So the thing is, because of the coronavirus situation, IRS, of course, the IRS was a little bit late in deciding on the extension. We are all very skeptical about whether they are going to do the extension or not. We were all sitting at the chairs, and the good news is the IRS announced that people will have time till July 15th to file their individual tax returns, as against April 15th. It's not only the tax return deadline has been extended, even the payment has been extended to July 15th. That's very big relief for a lot of the people who owe taxes. That way they can plan to pay the taxes the next couple of months. So that's a big relief. And also the estimated taxes for the first quarter also has been moved to July 15th. Both the estimated taxes for Q1 and Q2 have been moved to July 15th. So people who were supposed to pay the estimated taxes by April 15th, they have time till July 15th. So that's a big relief for people who owe taxes. Obviously, people who are supposed to get a refund, it is better for them to file as early as possible so that they can get the money quickly. So that's a big relief. But the thing is, even though the original filing deadline has been extended to July 15th, the extension deadline still remains the same, like it's still October 15th for individuals. But all other tax returns that are due after April 1st, they are also due by July 15th. So people who are having corporations, they cannot say that the extension is for 6 months from starting from April 15th. They also have to file by July 15th. Non-profits as well as C corporations, the original filing deadline is July 15th. That has not changed as compared to the individuals.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to hear is, like, even if you wanted to file an extension, you got to submit it by July 15th, is it?
July 15th.
I see what that's. Thanks for highlighting it. I think that's something we might have to reiterate in the end for folks who are joining a little bit late.
But that doesn't mean that they can postpone paying the taxes as usual. If they owe taxes by July 15th, they'll have to pay that by July 15th. If not, they'll be subject to penalty and interest and all.
Okay. Thanks for that information. And for those of you who just joined, this is It's Diff Show. This is Sri Srinivasa, and we have Mr. Raman and Mrs. Radha Rao on this presentation here. If you have any questions, yeah. So I'm getting some questions here, but I think we will wait to take the questions in about 10 minutes, right? Let's just get through something. So Mohan, I got your question here. So please stay tuned here. And in the meantime, dear listeners, if you have any questions, please don't wait. Just keep punching it and we will sort it and sift it through. So the next question I have in mind is about you mentioned about the relief, because this amount is such a huge 2.2 trillion coronavirus aid package. So the question is here is I get it, but how much I will get it? I will get it in one installment, or I'll get it 2, 3. The more I get it is good. Could you just unpack this for us, please?
I think Radha can answer this question. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you for the introduction, Sri and Mr. Raman. Talking about the CARES Act, the economic impact payments, or commonly known as stimulus payments, is the major relief for individuals in the CARES Act, and that is worth up to $1,200 per individual and $500 for eligible dependents if people qualify. So basically, who is eligible? U.S. citizens, residents, or even if they do not have a filing requirement, they are eligible for the stimulus payment if they are within the AGI threshold that the IRS has set. So basically, any individual who has a social security number and whose income ranges between $75,000 and $150,000, and this is based on different filing statuses, they are eligible for one-time economic stimulus payments, and which is not taxable and which is not repayable. So basically, what they get is theirs to keep. And so this covers a broad range of individuals in the United States, including U.S. citizens who may be residing abroad. And the best part is that no action is required. If you do not have a filing requirement, then there is no action required based on your social security number and the latest address. The IRS will mail the payments to you, or if they have banking information for you, they will directly deposit the payments in your bank account. But if you've already filed either your 2018 tax return or your 2019 tax return and have provided bank information on that, they will use that information to either directly deposit or mail the stimulus payment to you. But bear in mind that any non-residents or any married filing jointly individuals, if one of the spouses has an ITIN, they are not eligible. And any dependents over the age of 17 is not eligible. So basically, a married couple who have 2 kids under the age of 17 will qualify for $3,400 in stimulus payments. So $1,200 for each individual and $500 for each qualifying dependent.
Okay.
So that's basically
here. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt here. When you said the abbreviation, could you expand it for us? ITIN, what does it mean? Sorry.
ITIN means individual tax identification number. When people are on certain visas, they're not eligible to get a social. Most common example is individuals on an H4 visa as a dependent of an H1B. They are not eligible for an SSN, but in place of that, they get an ITIN, which is an individual tax identification number that they use to file their tax return. So any individual who has an ITIN in place of an SSN, that return will not qualify for economic payments.
Very good. Very good. Thank you so much. I think there is one related question from Mohan Dutt, and I'm just letting you know as well, who qualifies as individual or as SMB for CARES Act benefits? I think this is related, right?
Yeah. So basically, I think I covered that topic. But if there's anything in addition to that, we can take it offline and answer that by after the show.
Sure. Thank you very much for that. Okay, good. Anything else on that before we move on to the next question? Is this good?
Yeah, just wanted to, the most common question we get from clients is, am I eligible for the economic impact payments? And the second question that we usually get is, how will the IRS know where to send my payment? Do I need to do anything? If you have filed a 2018 tax return and or a 2019 tax return, then you don't have to do anything. In case you owed money and you decided to send them a check and the IRS does not have your bank information, then they will be mailing the check to your address, the most recent, the address that is listed on the most recent tax return. If they have your bank information, like I said, they will be sending you a direct deposit, and about 2 weeks after the payments are sent, you will get a letter notifying that the payment has been sent. If you'd like to update your bank information on the IRS website, there is provision to do that if you are a non-filer, that is, or if you are someone who hasn't provided bank information to the IRS. So that's those are the two main questions that we have been getting from clients ever since the CARES Act was passed and the economic impact payments were made known to the public.
I can also add to Varada's points.
Sure.
Like I know that many of people residing in the US, they have the parents live in India, and like they get the green card and they move back to India and stay there, and they may not have filed the tax returns, the normal tax returns. So there is a way for them to get the stimulus payment without having to file a full-fledged tax return. They just go to one site and enter some basic information about themselves, and the payment gets credited to their bank account. It's a very simple process for people who are living abroad and who didn't file the tax returns for 2018. They can still qualify to get the money. If they are a resident of US, they can do this without having to submit a formal tax return in detail.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Raman, on that. So, Mohan, thank you, Mohan. Just his comments. Thanks for answering the question for individuals. How does an SMB qualify for? So, I think you ought to wait for this. I think in the second section of this. Okay, good. I just wanted to let you know that this question is coming. So, dear listeners, you're listening to Eat Stiff Show, and we are having Mr. Raman and Mr. Radha from Principal Tax on this. So, again, more detailed questions can be answered. But just don't wait. Just keep punching in your comments and the questions in the chat, and I'll try to get this answered. Thank you so much for that. The next question is, individuals unemployed directly or indirectly as a result of this pandemic expect in this difficult time. What can they expect here? Because, there are people who are furloughed. There are people who are unfortunately got terminated from work because the companies can't pay them anymore. In some cases, they are all working to reducing their expenses and things like that. So in that case, what can they expect? Are there any ways to, other than the regular unemployment benefits that they get from the administration? Thank you.
I will ask Radha to answer this. Yeah.
Sure.
Coronavirus has wreaked havoc on the world, and we are living in a world that nobody thought would exist. It's a very unprecedented time at this point, and unemployment rates are at historical highs. And according to the Forbes website, right now the number of unemployment claims has hit 36.5 million applications, which was unheard of before this time. So the federal government has stepped in with the CARES Act to help people who have been unemployed either directly or indirectly as a result of this pandemic. Like Shri just mentioned, there have been many reasons why people have been laid off, and not just the people who have been laid off, but also people who are not able to work because of underlying conditions or health conditions where it may be detrimental to their health to go out and perform the same job that they were doing before this pandemic hit the world. So basically, there are many people who are unemployed, and the federal government, as part of the CARES Act, introduced the Federal Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program to help the unemployed citizens in this country right now. So basically, in a nutshell, people who were not eligible for unemployment benefits before are now eligible for the benefits under the new Federal Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program as part of the CARES Act. Earlier, any individual who was self-employed or who was an independent contractor or who voluntarily refused to accept a job was not eligible, or who quit a job was not eligible for unemployment insurance. But right now, because of the pandemic and how it affects various people, including some parents who have to stay home because they do not have childcare for their children. All the schools are closed and the daycare centers are closed. So even this is a reason why people are filing for unemployment claims. And all these individuals that I just mentioned have been able to file for unemployment under the new assistance program. So a couple other changes are the Federal Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program adds $600 per week in addition to what the individual would have been entitled to before this pandemic hit. So that amount is a large amount and definitely will go a long way in helping people who have been unemployed at this point. Not only the higher benefits per week, which continues, which started on March 29th and continues until July 25th of this year. In addition to that, there has also been a 13-week extension for eligible individuals. Obviously, this is not for everyone, but there are some individuals who can qualify for an additional 13 weeks after the initial 26 weeks of unemployment benefits. So that's a major change in addition to the higher unemployment benefits for individuals. And I'm talking about California in particular. This doesn't apply to all the, some of this doesn't apply to all the states, but in California, these are the changes based on the CARES Act and the Federal Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program.
So I'm super glad that you mentioned the qualified statement that this is for California, which is good. And I have a question. See, there are folks like who become unemployed suddenly, and what happens is, right, they get some job of 10 hours, 20 hours. So how then they cannot say, because I'm getting some benefits, I can't just do this. So could you just color code it for us? How do you take the situation? Am I employed or not employed?
So basically, anyone who has reduced hours but is still employed for part of the time will get the difference between what they're being paid and what is their what would have been their maximum unemployment amount had they been totally unemployed. So basically, if someone was would have collected $800 in unemployment benefits had they not been employed at all, but now they're working for say 15 hours a week and they're making $400 per week, then they still get the balance of the 400. So basically their benefits or their total income for the week cannot extend the maximum benefit amount, but unemployment EDD will match the payments to make sure that they get at least what they would have qualified for.
Okay. So
they get the difference.
Yeah, that reminds me of one thing. You mentioned EDD, right? So the first thing that they got to do is go register and yourself online if you are in that situation where you are either furloughed or unemployed, to make sure that is the first step you got to do, because they're going to ask you questions about, you know, the various things that you mentioned about how many hours you worked in a week and what is the start date, end date. And I heard that you got to be current as to see every couple of weeks you need to update it, because nobody wants to pay just for no reason. One more question. Krishnan Ganapati is asking a question. It's very relevant. Can I please interrupt you on that?
Sure.
I already did, I guess. Anyway, if you already have unemployment insurance, okay, then how does CARES Act affect that? Will we have more benefits?
So, like I mentioned earlier, the CARES Act, the Federal Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, has extended the benefit period from 26 to 39 weeks for eligible individuals. So this is not a one size fits all. There can be someone who is eligible for that and someone who is not.
Okay.
So basically the 13-week extension, which did not exist before the CARES Act, now helps individuals who need the extra money.
Okay. Thank you.
And just also wanted to quickly add, you said that they would have to go on the EDD website. Just wanted to let people know that the questions now need to be answered in a way that they were not before. Because of the pandemic, like I said, many individuals who were earlier not eligible for unemployment are now eligible. So there are some questions where the yes or no answers need to be changed, and they have instructions on the website. But if you need more information, then we are here to help. Feel free to contact us.
So basically, all you are saying is do not just blindly say yes or no without reading anything. It's like the options have changed. Please do listen carefully.
If the unemployment claim is denied once, then it just takes more time where the people who need the benefits do not get the benefits.
Okay.
And then they go every 2 weeks to
refresh and update.
Update the claims. File the claims.
edd.org, right? That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
edd.ca.gov.
Okay. To be specific for California, but for every state it's different, I guess.
So it's different. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you. I stand corrected. All right, dear listeners, we are listening to It's Diff Show, and we are having Mr. Raman and Mrs. Radha from Principal Tax. So regarding, we are actually talking about the CARES, as you know, CARES 2020, and the benefits for the individuals to start as the first segment. The second segment is going to be on business. So I have like a couple of more questions, so we can just do it. So I've heard of the hardship allowance and things like that. You know, when people are buying home, that hey, you can dip into your nest egg like 401k and those things. So thinking about this, I mean, again, everybody's goal is to get into the retirement funds and things like that. Is something as a safe haven, right? So what do you think about? Is that something we can really tap into?
I can probably pitch in and answer this. So this act is giving people the benefit of taking $100,000 from their retirement account without having to pay penalty. Even, of course, the withdrawal is subject to paying taxes. But the good news is, as long as you use the money under certain conditions, like if you take the money out for diagnosis or reduction in pay or work hours or having to provide childcare, these expenses qualify for you to take the money out without having to pay penalty. And as long as you repay the money within 3 years, you don't have to pay taxes on you get the refund for the taxes you already paid. So the thing is, if you want to use this money, use it for 3 years and you return the money, but subject to certain conditions, you qualify for not having to pay penalty, but you still have to pay taxes. But when you return the money, you can claim refund for the money that is returned, refund of taxes corresponding to the money, or put the money back into the retirement account. So that's a big relief for a lot of the people who want to take advantage of this.
Yeah. So, Raman sir, one question. I think I wanted to make sure that we qualify the statements with any state-specific things, okay? Because there are people all over the, I would say, globe, all over US listening to this. So I would always say, please work with your tax consultant and right to make sure we need to provide the disclaimers appropriately. I leave it to you as well.
So most of the things that we are talking is at the federal level. So these requirements can vary from state to state. And California has got its own things, like it doesn't conform to some of the federal tax laws. So you need to be very careful.
Okay.
Whatever I'm saying is subject to the federal thing. It could change according to the state that you reside in.
Okay, so I appreciate the qualified statement there. Okay, dear listeners, we can take a few more questions as well, right?
One more thing I forgot to mention, that the loan amount that you can take out of the 401k has been enhanced from $50,000 to $100,000. Before the CARES Act, the maximum amount that you can take out of 401k was $50,000, but now it has been raised to $100K.
So, I mean, what kind of documentation is required of that they have to really keep it? For example, right? If I have a
401k loan, there is no condition. Like the limit has been in the past. Also, there was not any requirement to be eligible for taking the money out. You just have to repay within 5 years. or before you leave the job. Otherwise, you'll be paying the taxes and penalty on that.
Okay, got it. Thank you. So, dear listeners, please feel free to punch in your questions, and then we'll pick up one by one based on the current context, etc. All right. So we are still in the individual segment right now. So, any changes for retired individuals or individuals planning to retire soon, which is actually, I think that there are lots of people in that situation as well. They aren't getting any new income. They ought to tap into their already coming retirement funds, but they might find some couple of hours of working here and there, temporary, whatever. Yeah. Okay. Could you please address that?
So the changes based on the CARES Act for retired individuals, anyone who turned 70 and a half before January 1st, 2020 was required to take a minimum distribution. It's called required minimum distribution, or RMD, from their account, from their retirement accounts, which is based on the value of the retirement account. So every year, if people did not take the required minimum distribution, then there would be penalties in addition to taxes on that. So basically, that's the government's way of forcing you to take money out of the retirement accounts. The RMD for 2020 has been, and actually even 2019 for people who did not already take it, has been suspended. Basically, retired individuals do not need to take a distribution in 2020. And if someone has already taken the distribution before the passing of the CARES Act, then they have the option, which did not exist before. They have the option to roll that over into a retirement account. Need not be the same account that they took the distribution from. It can be any account as long as it's a retirement account. And they have 60 days to do that. And in some cases, the 60 days has been extended to July 15th. Again, there are some conditions attached to this to get the extension till July 15th. But some of the retired individuals are eligible for the rollover of the distribution. That's the CARES Act. But I would also like to add here that as part of the Secure Act that passed late 2019, age for the RMD has been extended to 72 from 70 and a half. And that's for individuals who turned 70 and a half after January of 2020. And not just that one, and Shri, you just mentioned about some of the retired individuals actually having part-time jobs. These individuals were earlier not allowed to contribute to a retirement plan after they turned 70 and a half, which is basically only the traditional IRA. But now they're allowed to contribute to traditional IRA accounts with no limit on age. Basically, individuals of any age can contribute to a retirement account if they have earned income.
Okay, thank you. And so the related question that I have on this is, it's been super tough economically. And so there is a lot of, people are suffering in some cases because of being impacted, or medically they are impacted, right? Not necessarily due to coronavirus, but it could also be they are generally sick and now they are not getting any income coming in. And a lot of people, I see a lot of GoFundMe and a lot of other donations and charity and things like that are happening. So I think people have to open up their purse, to just do this. The charity begins at home kind of situation. So my question here is, from a deduction or any other credits perspective, could you touch on that to see? I mean, are there any special things that we need to be aware of in this case?
I can answer that question. So the good news is, people who want to contribute to charity, they can get a deduction up to $300 for cash contributions as an adjustment to income. It is a straightforward deduction. Currently, before the CARES Act, all charitable contributions are claimed as part of the ITIN deduction. But with the CARES Act, people can deduct up to $300 cash contribution as a deduction directly as a part of the AGA calculation. That is good news. Other news is people who want to contribute a lot, they are not subject to any limitation in the past. Like they can contribute up to the AGI without having to worry about the limit. So that's a good news for people who are going to have extraordinary income this year. They can front load their contribution for the future years by putting in almost the entire AGI and get the benefit. So there's no restriction on how much money you can contribute to charity for 2020.
So that's really very encouraging, Raman sir. That's pretty very good. Okay. So, dear listeners, if you have any questions on the individual segment, please do feel free to punch in here. And we are kind of like midway into our discussions with Mr. Raman and Mrs. Radha Rao from Principal Tax, formerly Raman Accountancy. Right. We can just simply hope whoever is listening through YouTube and Facebook, please do like our page It's Diff, and please do subscribe to the YouTube channel, because we have got lots of programs planned for you. We had a yoga 2 days ago. Yesterday we had talked about innovation in the digital, especially the online Indian grocery, right, in the rural to global. And today we have on the CARES Act. Tomorrow we have Tamil film music from Ayyapadasan. It's a continuation from last week. It's going to be totally different. And we have a lot of things planned in terms of agile and other on the food and restaurant industry and other industries as well. So if you like it, please, we need your comments. And also, if you have no good speakers and people who are interested to, with the community subject oriented and service, please get in touch with us at itsdiff@gmail.com. And also, don't forget to subscribe. So thank you so much for being an ardent fan. And as you know, after 11 years and 550 radio shows that we have done through Stanford University, including President Obama's live broadcasting. I was very fortunate to broadcast his speech when he was president. So pretty much I'm very thrilled to serve the community, and thanks for being part of It's Diff family, I would say. And thanks to great blessings from Raman sir as well. All right. So let's go to I think, do you think, is there anything pending before we move on to the business segment?
I know that we may not have much time to cover the business segment, so we can probably get straight into business segment now.
Sure. Okay. I think
if people have any questions, they can always email us. You can put our email on the display.
Sure.
So whoever has got any questions on this or any other thing that they want to know, they can always email us or call us, and we'll definitely help.
Thank you. I think that's nice of you, Raman. All right. So let's go to the business side of the equation. So, of course, definitely, I've seen stories like I can't pay my employees, and I am not getting any income for this. And unfortunately, they have to take the tough decision, including I think, which is Airbnb. I think there was you see the article on how he messaged. We also talked about it in one of the leadership program in terms of took a decision. You got to communicate that decision and then execute on it. It was very tough to say that, hey, it's not you. Okay, things like that. So I think it's been a lot of people are going through from an employer's perspective, and some of them actually were very good natured. They even paid for a month or two. They, as long as they had money. So the question is, what kind of a help they get from the government?
So that's a good question. The government has come with 2-3 major schemes for employers who need cash in the immediate future, because I know that a lot of the companies are not having good income now because of this pandemic, especially industries like restaurants and all that are hard hit by this pandemic. So the good news is the government has come up with, or this CARES Act is providing some benefits for employers to manage their cash flow, at least for the next couple of months. So the major scheme, I know that it's quite complicated because there are a lot of things that to go over this segment, but unfortunately, I don't know how much time we have. But I'll just quickly cover some of the major things. One of the major schemes under this act is called PPP, Payroll Protection Program, which is administered by the Small Business Administration, which is called SBA. They work through multiple lenders like banks as well as private lenders. So I know that the first round of stimulus package, it got exhausted quickly because a lot of the big banks took a major chunk of the quota, and they favored some other good clients at the cost of small clients. The good news is the money is still available, and we are helping a lot of the clients to get this stimulus under the Payroll Protection Program. It's a simple program. The loan is forgiven as long as you use the money for certain qualified purposes like payroll, mortgage, utility, and all that. So again, all types of businesses qualify, whether you're an S corporation or an individual or a C corp or LLC, you qualify. Obviously, the documents that are required to be submitted are different depending on your situation. It's quite complicated in terms of the documentation. Again, The requirements are for eligibility are also different for different types of entities. So any question you have on this, we'll definitely help you with this. And we can also work with private lenders. I know typically people go through their primary bank, like Bank of America, or major banks like Bank of America, Wells Fargo. There are a lot of small names like Lendio, Lending Tree, and all these companies that are helping people to get the money quickly. In fact, the response time is so fast that I'm amazed. Like a lot of my clients, I apply for them and they get the approval within a couple of days. The good news is you get 2.5 times your monthly income based on payroll or your Schedule C income. You get 2.5 times the monthly income as a sort of a interest-free, almost literally interest-free loan. As long as you use the money for qualified purposes, you don't have to pay the loan back. And this loan is not treated as income, and as long as you use the money for qualified purpose, the loan is forgiven, and the forgiven loan is not treated as income, deemed income.
Okay.
So it's a major provision. Unfortunately, there are a lot of things attached to this, a lot of conditions, how many employees, what is the turnover and all that. There are a lot of restrictions on this. But most of the small businesses qualify to get the benefit under this. And if you're able to prove that your business is suffering as a result of the current pandemic, you can also ask for a disaster loan. So that it's mutually exclusive. You can apply for PPP as well as the disaster loan. These two are not related to each other. So this is one of the major things that the CARES Act is providing for people, for employers who want to retain their employees. The other good news is you can also postpone paying the payroll taxes. But again, you cannot double dip. You cannot take advantage of the Payroll Protection Program and take advantage of the deferral of employer taxes. You can defer the employer share of the Social Security alone, not the Medicare. You can defer it to the extra couple of years as long as you don't take advantage of the PPP program. So that is one thing that you'll have to remember. And also there are incentives for employers to retain their employees. If they retain their employees, they don't even have to pay the payroll taxes. They can get the credit upfront by filing the quarterlies with the credit for the taxes. They don't have to pay the taxes and get a credit later. They can adjust apply the credit against the dues, and they can remit the payment to the respective authorities like IRS and the state employment agencies. This topic is very, very long. I think we should probably target to have another presentation on this exclusively for people who are interested in this, because this can run for an hour or so if you want to cover it.
Actually, that's a very good point, Mr. Raman, on this, because I've requested a survey on Facebook. Thanks for reminding me on this. So, dear listeners, I've punched in a survey on the Facebook page when you're watching. I've asked you a few questions, like a poll. Could you please punch in how useful information that you got and any pending questions and in fact, how you want ITSTIF to present different programs and different topics of interest. So thank you, Raman, for this. So the question here is, so there are mechanisms in which they can get some kind of relief from the government. So the question that I have in mind is, say somebody wants to ask you and team about their situation. Do you want them to keep certain information ready in hand before they call you, because some kind of a homework done so that it saves time?
A bit of a complicated
questions. Yeah.
So the documentation requirements are quite simple depending on the type of entity you are. Like if you are self-employed and you're reporting your business income on your Schedule C, then Schedule C is a primary document. But if you're a corporation and you're running payroll, then you need to provide all the quarterlies and annual report for 2019. So in terms of documentation, it's not very complicated. And also we are helping a lot of our clients to get this benefit. The good news is we still have money available. So people who are not aware of this or who are not applied so far, I would request them to start working on this quickly, because the first round of funding got over quickly. The second round, because the IRS or the SBA knew that a lot of the big banks favored some of their preferred clients. They are now reduced the quota for big banks, and a lot of small lenders have come into the race, and we are working with them, and we are able to get the loan quickly. So it's better for them to apply for this loan as early as possible.
Yeah. So I have a related question, Raman, on this, because is there a limit in terms of, like, a company has to be, like, say 100 million and down or 50 million down, or like, is there, I don't know if you covered it. Sorry, I missed it.
We already told you that there are limitations in terms of revenue, as well as because you'll have to come under this act in terms of revenue as well as number of employees.
I see.
And you can, as long as you use the money within 2 and 3 months or so, for the required purposes, you don't have to pay the money back.
Okay.
And the good thing is, I know that people will apply for a loan and get the loan quickly, but there are a lot of compliance requirements that they need to be aware of. They need to track how they are spending the money to justify that the money is forgiven. And that part is a very complicated, but I know that people can rush and get the loan quickly, but they need to be aware of how to use the money, how to track the money, usage of the money, so that they don't have to pay taxes unnecessarily on this.
Okay.
And if they don't use the money for the required purpose, then obviously they'll have to face the consequences for that. So people cannot just blindly take the money and use it for personal purpose. You need to have a business justification for this, and we are there to help people who want to do this. In terms of complaints, if they want to ensure that they are not on the wrong side of the IRS, we can help them with this.
So there is one related question in this subject from Ganesh, that can a small business take advantage of both disaster loan and PPP? I think you answered that question, right?
Yeah, those are mutually exclusive. Yeah,
exclusive. And then Ganesh,
you don't have to prove that your business was affected, whereas the other loan you need to prove that your business was impacted because of Corona.
Yeah, so I think this is a very Ganesh, thanks for asking this interesting question. So he's saying, hey, I applied for 2 banks, and then I get approved in one. So should I have to cancel the other, or let it be there?
It automatically, because the SBA communicates back to the borrower or the applicant.
Got it.
So basically, it's very difficult to get. The thing is, I know that if you have multiple Schedule Cs, you can apply for each of them separately too. So you can have 2 lines of business, and you can be reporting each of the businesses separately on Schedule C. And for each of these, you can apply for a loan, this loan separately. It's not necessary that you don't have to combine both and apply for the loan. You could use separate Schedule Cs as long as you have a distinct tax ID. You should have 2 distinct tax IDs if you have 2 Schedule Cs. If you have this met, if this condition is met, you can apply for a loan under both tax IDs.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And there is one related question that I personally have is, okay, I anticipated something and I got some kind of a funding, but I'm not using it. So what do I do? I mean, how do I pay it back?
The good thing is we can give the money back to the SBA.
You can pay it back?
Okay,
got it. Okay. And thank you. So dear listeners, you're listening to a Stiff Show, and we are talking to Mr. Raman and Mrs. Radha from Principal Tax. And thanks. We are talking about Catch 2020 for individual and business, and we are in the second segment right now. And this is the time for, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask us. And we still have about less than 10 minutes, right, to just call this session, and then to make it much more informative, answering this. And also, I punched in the URL for the YouTube channel for our show. Please do subscribe to it and let your friends know, because we have lots of information there. And if in case you missed watching parts of the show, you can always go back as soon as the show is over. You can check the archives on Facebook and ITSIF. And one more request I have is, if you feel that some of your small business team, friends, affiliates would be interested to have some information that being passed by Mr. Raman and Mrs. Radha, please do forward. Okay, don't hesitate, because our goal, as I said in the quote, you really can change the world if you care enough. So I think this is what is being demonstrated by Mrs. Radha and Mr. Raman from Principal Tax. So thank you so much for doing that. Well, all right, sir. And then any other loan process did we cover that, Mr. Raman? Any other?
There are some tax facilities also, like we could carry back, if you have a loss, you could carry back the loss to the past 5 years. That way, if you have paid taxes in the past, and if you have a loss this year, you can carry back the loss up to 5 years. That's a big relief for a lot of the people who are having loss, and they can get some of the taxes they paid in the past back as a refund. So there is something that we can help. And also some of the caps relating to business, like excess loss deduction limitation and the interest deduction limitation, all that have been removed. So these are more complicated, and I think we should have a segment specifically for business topics later.
Okay. Then is it okay to have a question in from Mohan? In financial year 2019 tax, is financial year 2019 tax returns need to be filed to qualify for CARES Act loan? I think Radha must have addressed this before, I think, right? You should be go ahead, please.
So I'll answer this question. So the thing is, so the 2019 tax returns need not be filed. All you have to do is to just attach a copy of the tax return, even if it's not filed. Just prepare a draft tax return And if you're a Schedule C, like if you're a sole proprietor or a single member LLC, all you have to do is to just upload the Schedule C. It need not be filed, but ensure that the numbers are coming close to what you're going to be reporting to the IRS at the time of filing. So it's not required to be filed, but it's almost like you'll have to upload a copy of the drafted tax return if you're a corporation or SC or S corporation. If you're a sole proprietor or single member LLC, you have to just upload a copy of Schedule C.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. All right. I think let me just quickly run through the list of things. Okay. So again, from the agenda for this session, we had identified tax reliefs under the CARES Act, unemployment benefits under the CARES Act, Paycheck Protection Program and other relief for small businesses, and economic impact payment. So I think fairly we covered all of these. And is there anything else as like additional information that you would like to let our listeners and audience know? Yeah, I have already punched in the information where they can find more information in case to reach to principal tax, right? Okay.
Yeah, there are a lot of opportunities for tax planning for 2020 under this act, especially for businesses and also for individuals. There are some opportunities for tax planning. So I would encourage people to call us if they need any help in terms of applying for a loan or how to handle the loan for ensuring that they are not having to pay tax on this loan as long as they use for restricted purposes. We can definitely help them with bookkeeping and recording all this properly and ensure that they are in compliance with the requirements of the loan.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Okay, any other information, Mrs. Radha, from you?
I know Mr. Raman touched base on this briefly, but I just wanted to caution listeners that any step they take, it depends. What we talked about is all on the federal level for the most part, except for the unemployment. But there are state-specific requirements, and there are some of the provisions for federal are not, the states are not confirming. So before you take any decision and avail the benefit of any of the anything that's outlined in the CARES Act, just be aware that state rules may be different, and make sure you talk to a tax advisor to know how it might impact your state return in 2020.
Okay, and there's one question from me while I was searching and trying to help myself. I heard about a new act also. If it is not relevant, we don't need to discuss it. But I heard about the HEROES Act, which is what? Is it something that's coming up next, or something we need more coverage on this one? Yeah.
I think we need to have a separate segment on this.
Separate. Yeah, maybe I will just wanted to leave that information out there. So, if, dear listeners, again, please post your feedback on this to see what other information that you would like to learn, so that we can have the team to present this. And also, I would like to take the opportunity to thank the team supports me for its diff, Mr. Prabhu and Mr. Daya for helping with the publicity on this, because it's always have a team to help. And in fact, they also helped in the show with Mr. Sasta Mani yesterday on the Sasta Foods rundown on the innovation. So thank you very much for their continued support. If anybody is interested, they have got some voluntary hours that they would like to help us in terms of finding the good speakers and stuff. We will be very thrilled, because it always takes a community to serve the community. So again, we would like to thank Mr. Raman and Mrs. Radha from Principal Tax for their time and their dedication and the service mentality in supporting and helping us to get through these tax nuances with respect to the individual taxes as well as the small and medium businesses. So thanks once again for the
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present about the CARES Act, and I'm very glad to inform the audience that our team is thinking of Radha, and all the clients are very, very happy with the services that she's providing. I would like to use this opportunity to thank and also let the audience know that we are having a very strong team now in terms of providing not only tax returns, also helping people with the PPP loan and all that.
Thank you, Raman, for the kind words.
Yeah, I just wanted to read a disclaimer. Again, the opinions and views expressed here from a tax perspective, or that of the organization, and not that of ITSIF for Tamil audiobooks. And again, from your perspective, listeners, please do consult with your CPA and or send an email to here, as I put in earlier, info@principaltax.com, to check your specific cases, check your region, check your applicability and your situation and things like that, and use it we advise the users to use that at their own discretion. So thank you so much for joining us. Once again, this is Sri Srinivasa from ITSIF and Tamil Audiobooks, and nice to have you all join us today. And we'll see you again, remind you, tomorrow we have Ayapadasan's Tamil Thirai Isai Ninivil Nindravai. Please, we will see you there, and much more. Like our ITSIF page, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks all for those of you joining. Stay safe, stay healthy, and let this too shall pass, as they say. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.